According to long-term scientific studies, higher concentrations of fine dust particles generated by road traffic and containing metallic compounds plus toxic and carcinogenic particles lead to a shortening of lifespan. Statistically, it has been proved that noise in the vicinity of motorways has a negative effect on health and that there is a direct link to conditions such as hypertension, insomnia, psychological disorders and other illnesses. Especially adverse to health is the sleep disruption affecting children. The European Union requires that main transport arteries be built so as to bypass main urbanized centers. The reason is obvious. It is not only to ensure a steady flow of long-distance traffic, but above all to protect public health. Due to the negative impact of dust particles and noise on health, new motorways and high-speed roads in the European Union must not be constructed through densely populated areas. From 2002, the measuring station in Brno-Tuřany has consistently reported deteriorated air quality due to PM10 solid particles in the southern part of Brno. In each year since 2003, the measured levels have exceeded not only the maximum legal limits, but even their upper margins of tolerance. Under the Public Health Act, exceeding the limits set by special legislation has already put the public health in this area into a state of emergency. The southern part of Brno currently suffers from extremely poor air quality. In 2005, the PM10 concentrations reached record levels. The daily maximum limit, which may be exceeded only on 35 days in any 1 year, was reached already in the 4th month of 2006. The state of emergency in public health continues. The air pollution situation in the southern part of Brno. The legal limit for concentrations of PM10 solid particles in air. Daily 24 hours average limit, 50 micrograms per cubic meter. Maximum permissible number of days per year when limit may be exceeded, 35. Real situation, number of days in 2005 when the limit was exceeded, 59. In the southwest of Brno, solid particles and noise pollution put to the health of over 50,000 inhabitants of Brno high-rise estates and the nearby communities at risk. The Road and Motorway Directorate, in its 34 years of managing the D1 motorway, has taken no measures whatever to protect the health of the inhabitants. In Bosonohy and Troubsko there are no anti-noise walls. The low embankments near the high-rise flats in the district of Bohunice are a farce. Despite years of inactivity in the area of public health protection, the Motorway Administration has asked the Public Health Authority for another exemption, even though the limit already increased by 20 decibels is not being observed by the Motorway Administration even at night. No one has begun to monitor the number of inhabitants suffering from health problems. Traffic in the city rests at night. The traffic on D1 motorway, however, never rests. The noise, even at night, never falls below the legal maximum limit, except when there is, for example, a change in wind direction or air pressure. Many inhabitants who live near the motorway are able to sleep only intermittently. Many of them end up repeatedly in the hands of doctors. The large number of trucks on the motorway at night proves that most of the D1 motorway traffic in Brno is in effect transit. Only a few cars turn off to go into the city. Under the Clean Air Act, regional governments are obliged to adopt action plans in order to speedily reduce air pollution to the legal limits. There has been no improvement, on the contrary. The regional government continues to press for massive transport constructions, putting a higher load on an already overloaded locality. The next question is whether the authorities in charge, especially the Public Health Authority and the regional and city governments, do not violate, through their passive attitude, the fundamental human rights of over 50,000 inhabitants in the southwest of Brno. The situation is so bad that air and noise pollution in the southwest of Brno is intolerable and exceeds the legal limits. City officials and the Motorway Directorate have not learned from mistakes in routing of D1 motorway. They push for more high-speed road constructions through the city. Kníničky was flooded by the Brno reservoir 70 years ago. The community had to be relocated. Now it is about to be flooded again, this time by air pollution and noise as a result of decisions by irresponsible officials. Those responsible for public health and environmental protection look on in silence. At the present time, large apartment buildings with dozens of units are being built only 150 meters from the planned route of the R43. A large development of new family houses is also being built below the reservoir dam. Using outdated plans, the regional and Brno governments, the Ministry of Transport and especially the Road and Motorway Directorate are trying to force the R43 Trans-European motorway to be located here. The South Moravian region played a passive role throughout the hearings regarding the environmental impact and public health impact assessments on the section of the R43 motorway from Kuřim to Troubsko. As experience with the D1 motorway in Brno has shown, the Road and Motorway Directorate does not have the technologies to keep the noise and air pollution within the legal limits in this densely populated metropolitan city. Bystrec, with its 25,000 inhabitants, is a favorite among Brno's citizens for recreation. Only a few cities in the Czech Republic have such close proximity to such an area of natural beauty. People stream in for recreation every few minutes by tram. Many international social events take place. Above all, however, it is a place for the people of Brno to take everyday walks. All of this is to become just a memory. This recreational area and place of walks along the shores is to be flooded with noise and air pollution from the R43 high-speed road and thus to be ruined once and for all. The access road between the reservoir wharf and the tram stop is to be crossed by the motorway itself and interchange ramps. At the level of the reservoir dam, there is to be an elevated motorway from which the noise will flood the Svratka River valley below. The noise will also affect the recreational area of Kozí Horka on the opposite bank. The city officials not only do not wish to prevent this, but instead they even press for it in a totally unqualified and vehement way. In May 2006, a noise pollution map of Brno was published. From a glance, it is obvious that the situation to the southwest of Brno along the D1 motorway is disastrous. On the other hand, the high-rise residential area of Bystrec was shown to be so far one of the cleanest areas. Should this, the only area in Brno that has not yet been affected by noise and air pollution, be also destroyed? Unbelievably, some people are seeking to destroy the entire western part of Brno by transit freight traffic, as if the experience from southern Brno was not alarming enough. What solution do these individuals have for the next 10, 20 or 30 years? Are they going to relocate 100,000 inhabitants from the western and southern parts of Brno away from areas that have become incompatible with life? If so, where to? The most problematic and indeed critical point of the R43 route Kuřim-Troubsko is its intersection with the D1 motorway. In Troubsko and Bosonohy, public health is already in a state of emergency. Despite this, the authorities most irresponsibly contemplate an additional load to an already unbearably overburdened locality by adding a major motorway intersection joining three motorways, D1, R43 and R52. The authorities plan to expand the D1 motorway from the existing 4 lanes to 10 lanes in the area of the Kamenný Vrch high-rise estate and the areas of Bosonohy, Troubsko, Ostopovice. The interchange ramps of 2 large motorway intersections, Brno-Bosonohy and Brno West, will have a devastating impact on the entire area. This combination of the intersections Brno-Bosonohy and Brno West, together with its complex system of access and slip roads, is to be squeezed into just 3.5 kilometers of the D1 motorway. The clear distance between them, however, would be no more than 500 meters, Since such an intersection will not provide enough time for drivers to move into exit lanes, there are plans for additional road construction projects such as relocating Route 602 in Bosonohy, constructing another exit ramp from the motorway into Brno, and constructing a new road from Troubsko to Střelice, which will increase the number of lanes near the motorway intersection between Troubsko and Bosonohy from the existing 4 to 14 or even 16. The terrain near Bosonohy and Troubsko slopes down in 3 directions from D1, R43 and R52 towards these villages. Since it is not possible to erect noise barriers across the motorways, these communities will therefore find themselves completely unprotected in the epicenter of noise and air pollution. So far, no environmental and inhabitants' health impact assessments have been made on the intersection of the 3 motorways. There was not even an evaluation of other alternatives. The regional deputies buried their heads in the sand and voted that an environmental impact assessment and public health impact assessment were not necessary. 400,000 inhabitants of Brno and the adjacent communities believe that common sense will prevail. They still believe that these, at best poorly designed projects and, at worst, monstrous experiments on people have no place in today's modern society. There are several positive alternatives to the planned north-south transport route in South Moravia. The common denominator for all of these is to divert transit traffic away from the Brno agglomeration. These alternatives are not only better for the environment, but they are also more economical. They are all more suitable than the outdated route following the so-called German motorway dating from World War II. Will these alternatives at long last be considered? Only clear separation of transit and local traffic can protect public health. Will the government protect its people and build a motorway that will truly bypass the Brno agglomeration instead of cutting through the residential heart?